Battlefield 2042's biggest crime is that its disastrous, unfinished, buggy launch has actually been blinding developers and players to the much bigger problem of the franchise, which is Battlefield's old, rarely innovated formula just doesn't cut it in the modern gaming world. Not in today's gaming landscape. If EA wants Battlefield to be a franchise that sells tens of millions of copies and can afford to drop hundreds of millions of dev dollars on each title, well then, it's gotta innovate. And when I say innovate, I don't mean copy successful games. I mean actually invent cool new gameplay and concepts that cater to the modern gamer. Pretty easy, right? Just make the game better so it attracts a bigger crowd while still satisfying old school gamers and add enough cool stuff to turn some heads in the marketing trailers. You're welcome, DICE. My job is done here, LOL. Obviously, making good games is incredibly hard work, and innovating a brand new game that's also good is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many developers. Luckily, we have a Vince Zampella on the team now, and he seems to make nothing but good games. And if he's as smart as I think he is, then my opening statement for this video is something that he's already been keenly aware of since taking on the Battlefield job. Today, I think we can narrow down some of the core problems and fixes for this franchise, right after a word from today's sponsor. Deep Space Nine, one of the best Star Trek shows to ever grace our 4:3 aspect ratio curved TV screens, has finally come to Star Trek Fleet Command, a fantastic mobile and PC game perfect for living out your Star Trek fantasies. The new update brings with it your favorite characters as playable commanders. They're Sisko, Kira, Miles O'Brien, and Bashir. Also, the iconic villains from the show, the Cardassians and the Dominion, are here. The new Deep Space Nine questlines feature the familiar themes of war, morality, and spirituality. Plus, they've added the tough little ship, the USS Defiant, to the game. The new officers have cool abilities that can help with ship survivability, which is super helpful, not having to constantly bring your ship back into the dry dock for repairs. There's also a cool new feature, Alliance Star Bases, which allows Alliance members to work together to build bases that can benefit Alliance members. And if you haven't tried living out your sci-fi fantasies yet, this is a perfect time to pick up Star Trek Fleet Command. Check the link in the video description, and while you're at it, live long and prosper. Alright, so the point of this video is to brainstorm ways that could inject some much needed energy and excitement to the game without turning Battlefield into, well, not Battlefield. This is also not about making a fix-it list for 2042, but rather looking at what the future of Battlefield could be. And from my perspective, there's three massive shifts that have been occurring in the past 6 years of game development, all of which have been hurting Battlefield, and the developers have not adapted their game design well. These three things are: 1, the raw marketing power of highly streamable games, pushing both sales and player retention. 2, the industry shakeup with battle royales and why those games are so fun to play. And 3, the massive explosion of quality, free-to-play FPS titles vying for gamers' attention. From an FPS developer standpoint, it's like a nuclear bomb went off in 2017, and some of the devs are still disoriented from the blast, trying to make the same games that they've been making since the early 2000s. Sorry, Battlefield, Call of Duty, and Halo, but the 2000-era shooters just aren't going to cut it anymore. That said, I do believe there are good options to take old school formulas like Battlefield's and update it with all the lessons that we've learned from modern gaming. One of the most important lessons that I think you could take away from popular streaming games is that many of them are high stakes and players are invested in the win condition. Winning in a battle royale is exciting, and as you get closer to victory, the excitement and tension builds. It becomes an all-or-nothing situation that's been building for 20 to 30 minutes, kind of a perfect formula, and a strong reason as to why they're some of the biggest games in the world right now. Now let's switch over to Battlefield's most popular game mode, Conquest. Winning or losing a round makes almost no difference to the average player. There's usually no events in the round that feel like they made a big difference in the match, and the progression of a match is usually just chaotic and random instead of evolving and calculating. Certainly very few opportunities for the individual player to feel like they're making a difference in the outcome of a match. DICE should be looking at their foundational game modes and reinventing them to be more engaging, have defining moments, clutch plays, and have it give reasons for players to really get committed to achieving the win. And I truly believe this can be done. Despite Conquest's seemingly limited design, it's open enough to mold it into something much more exciting. The first step that I would take is something that Battlefield 5 began to dabble with, but never really pushed it far enough in my opinion. And that's squad goals and objectives. Give squads a set of smaller, achievable objectives, rather than always focusing on the bigger team picture, which I think is somewhat unnatural for the average FPS player. Instead, have them focused on squad objectives that when completed will give both in-game and post-game rewards. When a match starts, squads could have a single or maybe a series of objectives given to them by an AI commander. Something like capture objective C and hold it for 2 minutes, or capture the objective closest to the enemy spawn. These types of squad goals could give you more purpose each round and create shared squad objectives that would require teamwork to achieve, with the overall goal of actually winning the match. Squad goals could start to offer real direction for each match, rather than just running out into a huge map and hoping that you contribute where needed. This system could actually be designed to offer smart, more strategic ways of playing that could potentially also sync up with other squad goals. Like maybe your squad's told to focus on a certain objective and other squads are told to focus on other objectives, trying to split up the team resources in an intelligent way. And maybe your squad goals even mirror that of a squad on the enemy team. So if your objective is to attack point C, maybe their objective is to defend point C. This could create a mini battle between two opposing squads during a match, and once the battle is won or lost by those squads, they would then get new squad objectives. Perhaps as the match progressed and the AI commander figured out which the best squads were on each team, it could start matching those squads up against each other, so you're getting much more intense firefights as the match progresses. Then Battlefield could also further incentivize the squad proximity system, a reason for staying close to your squad mates, not just extra points for sticking around them, reviving them, or backing them up in combat, which I do think is a good thing that should be in the game, but also potentially other bonuses and abilities. This could be anything from faster health regen, improved radar systems, maybe even the abilities could be dictated by the type of class that somebody chose to bring to the squad. They should also absolutely bring back a squad reinforcements type system. In Battlefield 5, squad reinforcements could allow squad leaders to buy different upgrades for the squad. Maybe a strategic airstrike, a special vehicle, or perhaps in a newer system that could involve some intel upgrades, like an orbital UAV that helps radar spot, or ammo and grenade resupply buffs that let you carry more ammo into battle. Battlefield 4 actually had a field upgrade system kind of like this, but its implementation was unfortunately really lacking. And again, if these ideas sound kind of outlandish for the Battlefield franchise, well, many of them have already been tried in the past, but the execution was just never taken far enough or made simple enough for the average gamer. Battlefield 2 had commanders that could delegate orders to specific squads. Battlefield 4 had field upgrades. Battlefield 5 had squad reinforcements. Unfortunately, many of these ideas weren't iterated on enough to make them work out properly, or just for whatever reason got forgot about in the last title. Okay, so say we make these changes to the game, can we evolve things even further while still keeping Battlefield Battlefield? Assuming this improves the squad play situation, let's look at the overall team objectives and match phases. Currently, the game mode Conquest is a nebulous experience at best. The round is really just a giant game of domination, with players reacting clumsily and in massively disorganized ways to attack and defend situations. The fact that any one team wins or loses can never really be traced down to a big play or pivotal moment, but rather just the slow churn of combat and watching points tick until the timer or tickets run out. What if we changed all that? What if there were events that triggered throughout rounds, where all of a sudden there was a 3 to 5 minute period in which all players had to fight over a single type of objective or assignment, and whichever team won that would get a big advantage or bonus. These objectives could be things like locations on the map that had to be won. They could be more generalized, like whichever team got the most unrevived kills in a certain period of time gets a massive point boost, or perhaps interesting mini games like recover the most supply caches and return them to your team's HQ. These are sort of mini games within Conquest that would create side objectives for short periods of time during the match, and once they were over, the bonus points could make a big difference in the actual outcome of a match. So if one team was holding, say, the majority of objectives for the round, but the other team was able to win all the mini games, perhaps the scores would be much closer toward the end of the match. And the objectives could be very similar to real-time war objectives. They could be things like capture a vehicle depot. Now your team gets bonus tanks and helicopters back at the HQ. Maybe capture the most supply drops and your team gets 100 bonus tickets over the enemy team. Secure control of a fuel depot or a series of fuel depots and you'll gain faster vehicle spawn rate bonuses for the rest of the match. Capture an artillery site and your squad leaders can call in bonus artillery barrages. There's honestly limitless possibilities here, and in my opinion, they all make the game sound way more fun and interesting. Now, if you're willing to even further differentiate matches and create additional decisive moments, there could be match choices that permanently affect the layout of a map. A massive destruction event could permanently destroy a map objective. Say there's a tall building like in Siege of Shanghai, and the enemy team has been able to hold control of it all around. Your team could attempt to destroy it completely and take that capture point off the map permanently. But rather than the situation in Siege of Shanghai where it just turned into a ruined version of what it was before, it could actually become nothing and your team just doesn't have to worry about that objective anymore. But also you could give players choices, so it's not just a do we destroy this or do we not destroy this, but more of a should we destroy this objective or that objective. Perhaps there's a dam and destroying one part of the dam floods one objective, destroying another part of the dam floods the other objective. That way players aren't always just doing the exact same thing every round, but instead teams and players have tactical decisions to make that can permanently alter a map or the flow of a round. This idea could be explored with much more depth and ideas to really create interesting, pivotal moments during matches. Now, when it comes to the overall win factor, the simple truth is that anything as big as Battlefield probably isn't going to be as exciting as a Battle Royale win or an Overwatch win, because the conditions of the win may feel a bit more out of your control when compared to smaller games, or at least in Battle Royales where you have a smaller team and more agency. That said, many things can be done to make the end of round win condition way more exciting. If a match is actually coming down to the wire, game conditions could change. A scoreboard that really shows just how close teams are, unique VO lines and commander lines emphasizing how close the match is, maps could start to remove the available capture points, focusing combat more intensely. Spawning could be limited to squad only. Maybe win conditions could even shift. If the team points are really close, it could turn into a last man standing scenario with everyone watching the final soldiers fight for victory of their entire team. There's a lot that could be done to make the win conditions really exciting rather than just kind of a generic, oh hey, the match is over, we ran out of tickets. What if one team got penalized and ran out of vehicle supply at the end of a match, so the dynamics shift completely to create a weird lopsided battle where it's a team of entirely infantry fighting against infantry and vehicles to try and dig in and get that win. On top of that, you could add in a much more evolved and interesting incentive system, such as top squads getting big bonus points or even loot after a match, or winning teams getting cosmetic crates or something along those lines. So like if you win, it's not just a small point bonus, but maybe something that you really care about that will help further your character progression, at least from a visual standpoint. When it comes to modes and Battlefield actually being a game with scoring and winning, these concepts could go a long way towards getting players interested in that aspect of the game and even increasing the stakes and tension that players feel while they play. Crazy wind conditions can make games much more watchable in a stream environment, which leads to more sales and more players, which in turn means more money generated and more content going back into the game. Regardless of whether or not you want to watch somebody play Battlefield on Twitch, you should generally want people to watch Battlefield on Twitch because streaming is a huge part of successful FPS games right now, whether or not we want that to be the case. Adding more moments, more decisions, and a tighter sense of squad cohesion will enhance a match experience and make them feel much more unique versus just another round that blends into all the other rounds. Battlefield historically has been defined by single moments, not entire matches. The old hashtag only in Battlefield is about promoting single moments. If you can start designing entire rounds that are memorable, now you have an entirely different beast, and a player base that's more invested in something bigger than just their individual experience. So instead of hearing, "Oh, I blew up a jet with a rocket," it could be statements like, "Our team came back from the brink with no vehicles and only 100 tickets left." That's a Battlefield game that I can see holding its own in the new era of shooters. I hope the team at EA has the balls to update their old, outdated game design and make it something that truly excites the modern gamer. It doesn't have to become something that's not Battlefield, but rather become a Battlefield that uses all of the modern tools and innovations to create an experience far better than what we've had before. I know that this is possible. If I can imagine the experience of what I want to play, somebody can design it. Anyway, thank you guys for sitting through my whole dissertation here. Thanks for watching. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the future of Battlefield and what you think about the franchise needing to update its foundations. If you have ideas of your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And if you missed yesterday's video talking about what the Specialist rework actually means for Battlefield 2042, then check it out here. It's certainly worth a watch. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.